Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the Powder Shop. It's your boy Lil Slim coming to you live at Lil Slim TV on YouTube. Welcome back to the show. Happy to see you today. In today's episode, I want to share some fond memories of my Cash Money brother, Kilo G. And I just want to talk about, the things that I remember about him and what his impact was, musically in the city and the legacy he left behind. So what I remember about Kilo G is I told you when I first got to Cash Money, they told me about this artist that they had already, and his name was Kilo G. And so I finally got a chance to meet Kilo G. And when I met him, he was a big guy. He was a big guy, mustache, and he was a grown man, until later I found out that when I met him, he was just like 16 or 17 years old, right? But I had listened to the record that they did with him, and I'm listening to the lyrics that he was spitting on his first record that Cash Money put out for him, and I was listening to his lyrics on there, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe he was that young, rapping like that, and so I was like, wow, this dude, he really is talented. But like I told you before, this bounce thing had such a stronghold on the music in New Orleans. They just wasn't ready for Kilo G yet, right? So when I met Cash Money, they started working with me, right? But they introduced me to Kilo G. I got to see him. I met him, and he was always around. He was always around. But the bounce had and took over the city and took over the music, to the point where he had to sit. He just had to sit and wait until the music just shifted a little bit, right? So in meeting Kilo G, he was very funny. He was a funny dude. He had very good energy, and man, I love being around him. I love being around Kilo G. I got a chance to hang around him a few times, and I enjoyed myself around him is what I could remember, because we was always laughing, cracking jokes, you know what I'm saying? So that's what I remember. And so Cash Money started working with me, and after me, they started working with UNLV, then PMW, then Pimp Daddy, then even T, and all these albums Cash Money was doing, and all the work that was being done, Kilo G, he sat idle. He sat idle and he patiently waited his turn, But like I said, he was always there. He was always there. Like, what I'm saying? Cash Money ain't let him stray away too far. He was always there, So at that time, the back and forward started heating up, with the Big Boy versus Cash Money. And You know, Big Boy, they had a loaded roster over there. You know, Big Boy had an all-star roster over there. You know, so that was when we had to go out and we had to go, you know, get Mr. Ivan, you know, and I think Heavy brought Ivan to us, so that was a big addition to, you know, Cash Money, because like I told you, Big Boy had an all-star roster. You know what I'm saying? You had Mystical, you had PNC, you had Black Menace, you had Ghetto Twins, you had G Slim, you had Fiend. I said Fiend. I mean, you had Insane. And who else they had? And you know, Precise was the producer over there. You know, Sice was like another Manny Fresh. He was Big Boy in-house producer. So anyway, Big Boy upped the ante on far as rapping. They had real rappers over there at Big Boy, right? Because, like I said, the bounce scene was so strong and had a strong hold on everything. You know, at that time, if you was coming in trying to be lyrical, New Orleans wasn't really hearing you. You know what I'm saying? That was until Big Boy came on the scene. You know, you had real rappers over there. Black Menace, you had J-Dog and Threat, you know, and, you know, G Slim. You know, these guys was lyrical. You know what I'm saying? And Big Boy also had their own bounce powerhouse, PNC. PNC, they stuck to bounce, right? And so Cash Money was doing all these albums, and Kilo G was patiently waiting. And so then it came back around to my Thuggin' and Pluggin' album. It was time for me to record Thuggin' and Pluggin'. So that's when Cash Money, like I said, Kilo G was always around. We always had our hands on him. And by that time we had Ivan too. So now we got Ivan and Kilo G. You know what I'm saying? So we got some strength now. Some real rapping lyricists. You know what I'm saying? So when it was time for me to record Thuggin' and Pluggin', we brought Kilo G back in, and it was the introduction of Mr. Ivan. That's how we introduced Mr. Ivan to, you know, the label and, you know, our audience on Thuggin' and Pluggin'. It's Time to Murder. You know what I'm saying? So when I think about that, that was a pretty clever move by Cash Money. You know what I'm saying? To introduce Mr. Ivan on one song and at the same time bring Kilo G back in, right? Because at that time, when I was doing Thuggin' and Pluggin', I was more lyrical. I was getting more lyrical. I had them kind of strayed away from bounce. You know what I'm saying? I still had my bounce origins, and the bounce, you know, it was still in me, but I was getting lyrical, right? So to me, it made perfect sense to bring Kilo G back in. And so man, Kilo G came back in, and on that verse that he did on It's Time to Murder, we heard Kilo G rap on that, and we was like, oh man, it's time for the album, right? So man, Kilo spitting, rake shop. And then, Thuggin' and Pluggin' came out, And then, by that time, Cash Money kept releasing albums. And then next thing you know, Kilo G was ready, right? Kilo G was ready. Now, me, myself, during that time, when Kilo G released Bloody City, because that was the album that he released. He released Bloody City. By the time he released that album, I was gone, right? But I knew how he was coming. And when the album dropped, of course, I'm listening to it, right? So, man, I'm listening to Kilo rap on this Bloody City, and he done upped the ante. He done upped the ante lyrically, and like he was flipping his words. Man, the guy was awesome. You know what I'm saying? I'm listening to this album, so you got Ivan, you got Kilo G together on there. Man, that was a hell of a tandem, Ivan and Kilo G. That was a hell of a tandem. Y'all have to go back and listen to it. You can go on YouTube, pull up Kilo G, pull up the Bloody City, and listen to that boy work, right? And man, I listened to that album, and Cash Money had a close relationship with Bun B back at that time. Not with just Bun B, but with UGK, period. They told me that Pimp C wanted to do a song with me, but I ain't never get a chance to do that song with Pimp C. So R.I.P. Pimp C. But so yeah, Kilo dropped the Bloody City, and that was his best album, and it was his last album, But that album there, Kilo G was already a certified Cash Money legend because he was the first artist to drop on Cash Money. So he waited his turn throughout all those albums. And throughout everything that was happening, he patiently waited his turn, and he stuck to his pen. And when he dropped that Bloody City, you could tell that he had been waiting, and he was ready. I mean, all the way ready. And at that time, Mannie Fresh had to up his producing skills. You know what I'm saying? Mannie Fresh, he was upping his producing game. He was bringing in live musicians, he was bringing in live musicians on Thuggin' and Pluggin'. And so the music was up to par. And if you listen to that Bloody City album, you listening to live instruments being played in there, And man, it's an album that that you really would enjoy. Like I told you, 187 in the Hockey Mask by Ivan is gonna be one of the best albums you heard. And Kilo G, the Bloody City, that's probably gonna be one of the best albums you heard. So I just wanted to share my fondest memories on Kilo G, R.I.P. I miss you, my brother. And we gonna always keep your memory alive, and we always gonna honor you. So I wanna give that honor to Cash Money legend, Kilo G. And thank y'all for coming back to another edition of the Powder Shop. And I'll see you on the next one.